Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maverick Mindset Radio Show. I'm Adam Williams.
And I'm Ashley Muckenhop.
And this is the radio show for the dreamers and doers. It's for those who are willing to step into the arena.
Some call us the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers.
We don't accept the status quo. We leave the world better than we find it.
We approach each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. We maintain irrational optimism about the future.
This is the Maverick Mindset Radio Show, brought to you by me, Adam Williams. I haven't listened to last week's episode.
What? I was so proud of that.
I know. All right. So I was in a third world country, right? So I didn't have internet access enough to watch it on Facebook. And it's not on Spotify yet, or at least it wasn't as of.
I sat right over there.
So, yeah.
Yep, that was my chair for
I got good feedback on it.
Yeah, well,
but I think I will be the judge of the quality of the show.
We had even our first Joel had a question, so it was our first question and answer in the show.
Man, I got to go back and now I'm nervous. Maybe we should just cancel today's show and I'm going to go and listen to last week's.
It was really good. Chrissy was on here. She did well.
It's good to be back in the saddle.
Yeah.
I'm a little jet lagged, but we've had a lot of
What
stuff
time did you get back?
Yesterday afternoon.
I wasn't. But you pushed the time in getting here today. I wasn't sure.
People were driving slow. But yeah, it was. It was a 6-hour time difference, so it would be 3 a.m. in Bora Bora right now, which is how that's the time I've been acclimated to. So I'm dragging a little bit, but I'm excited about today's show because this is one where I had more time to prepare because I didn't have to do last week's show. So I've been thinking about this a little bit and just being aware of things in my life. But anyway, so today we're talking about, what are we talking about today? Money,
mindset, the lies we tell ourselves about money. Yeah.
We have to say lies because we can't say the other word that we have to do a podcast not live on the radio about truth, lies, and BS.
Yes.
Because they aren't really lies, but we'll save that for another episode where we're not restricted by the FTC.
Yeah.
FCC. All right. So show number 22 also, that's pretty exciting because I did go on Spotify. I did try to listen to last week's show, but it wasn't uploaded yet. And I saw we had 21 episodes up.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
It's a lot.
So, all right. So before we jump into it, as we introduce every show, we are streaming live on Facebook, Maverick Mindset Radio, growing a great following there. We've got the episodes up on Spotify. We're streaming live on YouTube. And then, of course, MaverickMindsetRadio.com, where we've got Maverick merch. Use the code Maverick10 for 10% off. We both have our notebooks today.
Yep.
I forgot mine the last time I was here, but
I
got my notebook. I need to. We have new merch for Pennywise too.
Yeah.
We're not ready to to officially launch this. What happened was I placed the order to test it.
Okay.
And it got delivered while I was gone, and they're at the office, and I haven't been back to the office yet.
Nice.
But I did have a couple friends place orders, and they sent me pictures.
I think I saw some.
And I'm excited about the new Pennywise merch. So anyway, we'll have some more. We'll do a show. This is probably.
I think everyone that orders a shirt, you need to send in your pictures so we can post it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I told the people that bought the first round of shirts, I'd give them a free copy of my book.
You know what's funny is it's almost becomes the drink the twisted tea, and then people send in the pictures of themselves. We need to start make a shirt of all the people.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And let's all right. So this is it's such a brilliant marketing campaign. I'm gonna tease it and we'll get back to it later.
Yeah.
So we're selling shirts that have sayings on them, and they say, defund the IRS. Mm-hmm. They say taxation is theft. They say pocket more profit. That was Jackie's that she came up with. So we've got this message of, anti-tax, anti-IRS that will sell these t-shirts, and it'll be a brilliant lead-in to Pennywise tax strategies.
Yeah.
So, hey, if you're the type of person who believes in defunding the IRS, by the way, we've got this business that helps do it. It's the most brilliant marketing campaign.
It's great.
All right, we'll get there. Anyway, that we're not officially launching that yet, but their shirts are available. We don't have the fancy website, but yeah, we will definitely need photographs of people wearing those shorts because we're gonna need them on the website too, just to show that we're we're legit and these things are printed in America and we love it here. All right, so today we're talking about money.
Yeah,
I'm excited about this.
Yeah,
can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Does your car have massaging seats?
No. It has everything else, but
it doesn't have massaging.
You know what? It might, and I still, it's almost it's over a year later, and I still don't know everything that car does and all the buttons.
I got this new car, and it's the first car I've ever had that has massaging seats. I've rented cars that have it, and it's great, but knowing that it's now part of my daily experience.
Okay. Well, it has the seat warmers, seat coolers. There's got to be.
Yeah, so vented seats are that. Like, I remember the first car I had that had heated seats. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then they came out with vented or air conditioned seats, and I'm like, well, I need those, and that was great. And then the massaging seats thing, I was like, I don't know if I need that. But and now I have it, and I'm never going back.
Yeah.
That does tie into today's show a little bit, because there's plenty of people out there listening right now going, oh, well, the purpose of a car is get you to A and B. You don't need to give it. It doesn't need to give you a back robe. And it's like, well, sometimes
for somebody that's been dealing with back issues for the last 3 weeks, I would really like to find out if my car.
Yeah. So when we go back to the office after this, you drive my car. I'll show you how to work the massaging seats. I'll take your car and see if you even have it.
Swear.
That would be funny if you had them for a year and never learned how to use it. That would be ironic. That
wouldn't surprise me.
All right, so I'm back. We're in the studio. We're talking about money. Mm-hmm. And when I think about money, I think many things, but I really think about a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves about money.
Yeah.
So having just gone on this obnoxious vacation, like this vacation was nuts.
Yep.
The one resort that we stayed at, called the Brando, is its own private island.
Is it named after Marlon Brando?
So what happened was, when Marlon was filming Mutiny on the Bounty, he bought this island.
All right, so it is after.
and then he died, probably early 2000s, and he had been working on developing it, and it never happened. And then finally, it must have been his family and his estate got this developer in who had developed several resorts in French Polynesia.
Nice.
So it's like 34 separate homes.
Is that the ones that were right on the water?
No, that was the Four Seasons. That was the first part of the trip. But the second part was at the Brando. And this hotel actually has its own private plane, because really the only way to get there is you fly into Tahiti, and then you have to get from Tahiti out to this Tetiaora is the name of the island where the Brando is. It's the only thing on the island is this resort, and they have an airstrip. So yeah, they've got like their logo painted on the tail of this plane, and it's not a big jet, right? Because it can't be, because the runway isn't big enough, because it's a private island. So it's this old like twin propeller, probably a 13 or 15 passenger.
I'd have been like, oh man.
No, you know what's funny? After flying small planes, like I fly 2 passenger planes, 4 passenger planes, getting in a 13 passenger with 2 engines and a pilot and a co-pilot, I'm like, we're fine.
We're good.
Yeah, and they're actually, this particular type of plane it would be okay if it landed on water. So, but anyway, really interesting, because I mean this trip was so great. And so the Brando, for example, was all inclusive. The Four Seasons Bora Bora that we stayed at, which has the overwater bungalows. That was the whole point of the trip. I have had an overwater bungalow in Bora Bora on my vision board for 3 or 4 years, and this is the year that we finally did it. It was just like
the pictures look just like when you see them in the movies.
It was. I was so upset with my phone because it didn't properly capture the intensity and variety of shades of blue in that water. The pictures do it no justice. But yeah, when we get back to the office, we can do a slideshow and I'll show you all the pictures. Cool. But it was really interesting, because I was thinking, as an example, on this trip, we the Four Seasons provided breakfast every day. Like, it was included in the package, right? And it's this big breakfast buffet. Mm-hmm. And it's so it's French Polynesia, so there's a lot of Europeans there, there's a lot of French people there, there's a fair share of Americans there. So they have to have a breakfast buffet that appeals to everybody. Right? And you get into this thing, and it's included in the price. And I mean, I just stuffed my face every day, right?
Like, I would.
There's a buffet, but then you can also order the eggs and the waffles. And I had more eggs Benedict on this trip than I've ever had in my entire life. But it got me thinking about buffets, because I love buffets.
Yes.
When I was the fat kid growing up. I wanted every birthday party to be at Haas's.
Oh, I used to love Haas's.
Right.
Yes.
And
they had the best buffet.
But what was your mindset when you went to a buffet as a kid?
Just everything on it.
Get your money's worth.
Yeah, right? You go up as many times as possible.
Yeah, you have to take so much food where you get to the point where you hate yourself.
Yes.
Like that was my standard at a buffet.
And you never finish it on your plate. You're just like going for the next one. And like,
yeah. It made you wasteful and what's the word? It's one of the seven gluttonous. There you go. I knew it was one of the seven deadly sins. But yeah, like you don't want to just get there and stack, because it's like, well, I'm paying for this. I got to get my money's worth. Yeah, right?
It's almost like it's going to disappear if you don't get up there fast enough. I remember like sitting down, like, can I go up now? Can I get my plate? Like just running. Yep.
So it got me thinking about one of those money stories, which was, when I go to a buffet, I got to get my money's worth, right? And it got me thinking about other meals where, like, we have this paradigm or this viewpoint of a lot of people in this country where you have to finish the food on your plate. Mm-hmm. Where's that come from? Well, I think where it comes from is it's perceived as wasteful. Yeah. That if you don't finish something and you throw it out, you've wasted that food. So we come up with these stories of, there's, what was it when we were growing up? It was either starving kids in China or Africa. Right? It was one of the two.
There's
right?
starving children in Africa.
Yeah, there's starving children in Africa, so you need to finish your food.
Yeah, I think it was past, and it probably came from our grandparents, right? Because the Great Depression. So at that point, you had to, a lot of them went through the money troubles, and then started to probably grow their own food and do all that. So you couldn't be wasteful. You had to, what you had is what you had. And
you really cut to the bottom line of that without.
I'm sorry.
But well, no, but that's the point, is like you've been around this stuff and have been around me long enough that you realize that that's where these things come from. So I'll tell the story that I was told on this, and then it sort of, because I think one of the things that we want people to get from this show is this episode in particular is like, just be aware of this. Like, start recognizing when this stuff happens.
Yeah.
So the way that this story was told to me is, there's this husband and wife, and they're newlyweds, and they move in together, and they get, all the stuff and crap that you get when you get married, and all the gifts and things like that. And the wife was making like a roast for dinner. Mm-hmm. So she pulls out the roast and she cuts off the corner and she throws it in the roasting pan and throws it in the oven. And the husband says, well, why'd you cut the corner off the roast? And she said, well, because that's how you make a roast. And he's like, well, where'd you learn that? Well, my mom. So he calls his mother-in-law. Hey, how do you make a roast? Well, you get out the pan, you get out the roast, you cut the corner off the roast, you throw it in the pan, throw it in the oven. He's like, okay, where'd you learn that? Well, from my mom. Mm-hmm. So he calls Grandma. Grandma, how do you make a roast? I don't know, just put it in the oven, get your ingredients, throw it in the oven. He goes, yeah, but what about this thing where you cut off the corner? And she's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, my wife cuts the corner off the roast, throws it in the pan, throws it in the oven. Her mom cuts the corner off the roast, throws it in the pan, throws it in the oven. And they both said that basically this came from you. Right. And she's like, well, yeah, because when I was young, we were so poor, we couldn't afford a large enough roasting pan that we had to cut the corner off to make it fit in the pan. So we've got this tradition now.
Cut the corner.
That's 3 generations deep, but the second and third generations have no idea why they actually do the thing.
No.
Right? So I mean, I've really been thinking a lot about this, especially after coming back from this trip where money didn't factor into a lot of our decisions on this trip. Let's just put it that way. So it was really interesting. I mean, you know what? I also broke a new record on this trip.
Uh-oh.
I had my first $50 cocktail. I know.
What was that? What was in that?
Well,
that better
now
been
let me back up, because it was only a few weeks ago, and it's funny because I don't even remember the number now. It was only a few weeks ago that I was in Chicago, and I went out for drinks with a friend of mine, and he paid, thankfully, and I got a cocktail, and it was like $25 or $35. Like it was a noteworthy number, right? And I usually don't look at that side of the menu, but I just happened to catch it. I'm like, holy crap, and we were at this nice hotel. So I had my first $50 cocktail. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had $50 cocktails before, but it's usually like a fishbowl, right?
Right.
Like I remember the first $50 cocktail I had.
You only need to have one. It makes up for your whole night.
The first one I had was on South Beach, but it was like a gallon of booze. This was like a regular cocktail glass, and it was $50.
Dang.
Yeah. But it really, so I remember when I was a kid, my dad drank Heineken almost exclusively, right? He also drank some Lowenbrau and Heineken. Those were his 2 beers, but it was primarily Heineken. And I remember we went to San Diego, and we went to Hotel Del Coronado. Really big, really nice hotel in San Diego. And I remember he ordered a Heineken, and it was $5. And he shared that Heineken with his friend who was on that trip with us, right? So my dad and Wade split a Heineken because it was $5 and it was
$5.
so expensive, right? And that's always stuck with me because I think especially with the growth of like craft beer in this country, like you can spend $12 or $13 on a beer pretty easily, and any other pint is going to be $7.
Yes.
Barring some special or something like that. But I also remember, so that story's always stuck with me because I see the price of drinks and I think about my dad sharing a $5 Heineken. Like in my lifetime, I was a kid, right? And now here we are, $50 cocktails. But the other funny thing was the reason my dad drank Heineken is because he knew he liked it. And he didn't want to waste money by ordering something that he may not like.
Yeah, so he just stuck to the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's another one of like, I don't know what it is about me, but I really like variety. I like trying new things. Like I don't want to do the same thing twice. We spent one day, we got a cabana by the pool the one day, and there were a lot of drinks flowing.
Yeah.
And it was my goal to not order the same drink twice.
Just a variety.
Yeah, because I like to try new things and I like to experience new things.
It was a buffet of drinks.
It was all you could drink for sure, and I set a new record. But no, it really got me thinking because the reason that my dad did these things is he didn't want to waste the money. He didn't want to risk not liking something, so he stuck with the same thing. Whereas me, first of all, I haven't met many drinks that I don't like. Right. But on the other hand, I also really I want that variety, and I want to experience new things. So I don't know. I think. Really thinking about a lot of these stories that we have from growing up that come from our parents, that maybe come from 2 or 3 generations before that. That's what you said earlier is it really, I mean, a lot of our decisions today about money really go back to the Great Depression.
Did it?
Because for a lot of us, that was when, and don't get me wrong, there's a million exceptions to this, but for a lot of us, that was around the time that our families were coming to this country, maybe only 1 or 2 generations in, or maybe they moved during the Depression or shortly thereafter. So because money was such a big issue then, that we've continued to have these conversations around money and the same mindset around money, but we haven't really examined why we have these outlooks on things. Right?
Well, then money was perceived, and this goes back so now we have this mindset that money is difficult, hard to find, and that if you want it, you got to work really, really, really hard for it. And if you think back to when the Depression was happening and our grandparents, that's exactly how it was for them. For them, money was hard to find. They had to work extra hard to get it. And it was difficult. It was a difficult time period.
You know what? That was the perception, but there were also a lot of really wealthy people that were created during the Depression.
Yes.
So there were opportunities there.
Yes. But the majority lived with that mindset. And so at the time, their kids saw this, and it was talked about to them, and this is what they were told. And it was like, hey, if you want to, and this is talked about in that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Michael Ryan. And it was, your mindset was you had to work really hard. This is what you have to do. This is how you're going to get money. And anything outside of that box is ridiculous, right? So that's how it was passed down to our parents, which then passed it down to us. So that perception on money has become something that all of society seems to believe.
I had to fact check you there. Michael Ryan?
Michael Ryan.
No.
Yes, it is.
Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Are you sure?
I don't know. It's only a book that I buy for every single person on our team and have 17 additional copies on my bookshelf.
Okay, you're right.
That's right.
Sorry.
Well, he's wrote a bunch of books and has the cash flow board game. And anyway.
Okay, yeah.
So here's a paradigm shift for most people, because you just explained all these things, that money is limited and it's scarce and it's hard to come by and you have to work hard. I think that money is it is. Money is the most abundant resource on the planet.
It is.
And they keep making more of it. They keep printing more of it.
Yep.
More becomes available. So that's why
it's so crazy.
Well, it's not crazy. It's just, it's unexamined. If you really stop to think, money is everywhere.
Yes.
And one of the things that we've learned from our mentors is like all of the money that you need already exists. All the resources that you need already exist, but all of the money that you need is already out there in the world.
Yes.
So just find a way to go and get it.
Right.
So that's why we came back to this trip. It was really funny this morning. So I did a Facebook post this morning. We're back from Bora Bora. We're ready to get to work. It was really a moment of emptying the vacuum bag for us. And I got a message from a guy that I don't think I've ever met this guy this morning, but we're in a group together. And he's like, "Oh man, how's Bora Bora? It sounds so cool. Like I can't talk myself into spending money on a trip. I go to Aruba every year and it's fun, but I want to go to Italy and I want to go to Bora Bora, but it's so much more money." Mm-hmm. And it's like, what do you do? The guy's a financial planner. and I'm like, don't you have these conversations with, and he gets it. He understands how silly it is that he helps people achieve and accomplish their dreams through financial planning. Yes. And he's got these hopes and goals and dreams that he won't go out and do for whatever reason. Yep. And those reasons usually come back to shame and guilt and worthiness. Yep. But it was such an interesting conversation that I wanted to, if I had more time this morning, I probably would have just called him and said, all right, here's my advice. Spend money on a vacation and decide if you want to continue doing it.
Right.
Right. Like you may get in and say, I don't really like this. Right.
Right.
But if you're taking a trip and you're going, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 7 days, maybe 1 or 2 of those nights stay at the extra super nice hotel. Yeah. So you give yourself a taste of it. In fact, it's really fun to do that at the end of a trip or the beginning of a trip. Like if you, or in whatever, in the middle, wherever you decide to do it. But if you gave yourself that experience of like, what's it like? What's it like driving the car with the vented seats that also do that also massage, right?
Right.
What's it like staying at a 5-star exclusive resort? What's it like staying somewhere where you've got a butler in your hotel room? Most people never even give themselves that experience, which is such a shame. I just saw Lewis pull in. I hope he's listening to our show. Most people never give themselves that experience. And it's such a shame that like they won't even let themselves know whether or not they want the thing. They'll just say no before they even have that possibility. And this is a really big one for me because there are a lot of people out there that don't think they're worthy of spending the money, of having the nice things, of doing the neat things. Like they always they come back to money first and basically decide that they're just not worth it.
We allow money to make the decisions, and the amount that we have or don't have is what controls what we do and what we don't do.
Yeah, so let's flip around how we make our decisions on that. Yeah. Let's
start there.
Yeah.
It's not about the money that you have or you don't have. It's about making the decision.
Right. But here's how the decision goes, or should be made, right? Most of us make decisions for emotional reasons.
Yes.
And then we justify them with logic.
Yes.
Right? So we make the emotional decision of we want to buy the car or the shirt or whatever, and then we justify it on the back end and say, oh, I got a really great deal, or my payments are whatever, or whatever the reasoning is. But the real reason that you wanted the thing is just because you wanted the thing.
Right.
So I think it's really important for people to flip around the decision-making process. And here's my advice. As best as possible, decide what you want up front. So you've got like the non-negotiables and you've got the nice to have, right? So I knew when I got a new car, I wanted vented seats. Right. And I wanted the button that makes the exhaust louder. I had neither of those things on my last car, but they were like, I wanted to have them on the last car. I found the car that checked all the boxes. I wanted the red interior. I wanted the certain sport package, whatever. But I didn't get the vented seats and I didn't get the sport exhaust. And now in the new car, I'm like, all right, they've gone from nice to have to must have. So I made those decisions in advance. That way I could make an informed decision about whether I wanted the car or not. So decide up front what you want. And then once you see the price, decide whether or not it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, that most people put the money decision first and say, I just can't afford it. Well, they deprive themselves of the opportunity to experience what they actually want to experience.
What you're saying is you should put that, not, I can't get this car because I don't have the money, but I want this car and it has to have this, and I'll figure out the money part later.
So if we're going to talk about cars, right? Yeah. I'll use Porsche as an example.
Okay.
You can go and buy a new Porsche 911 for, I don't know, $120,000, $150,000 for a pretty nice one, right? Like Porsche is really famous for like every single thing is an add-on and an option. So the range of prices is pretty broad. So you can buy a cool sports car, German made, well-engineered, for, call it $150,000. Well, there's also a Porsche GT3, which is a 911, basically race car for the street. So it's faster, it's got more horsepower, they have roll cages. Some of them even have the back button. Seats. I'm sure it has the button, yeah. Some of them even have the back seats removed, and they've got these big wings, and they're probably $250,000. And it's I say probably because they're so hard to find that there's like MSRP, and then there's what people are actually willing to pay, which is significantly higher. So there are people out there that could look at a regular 911 for $150,000 and say this is a really great car, and then they could look at the GT3 for an extra $100,000 and say, oh, I need that. Like the additional stuff that I get from having basically a race car for the street is worth that additional expense. But then there's going to be other people that look at it and say, wow, for an extra $100,000, I don't get that much more.
Right.
In fact, in a lot of ways, I get less because there's fewer features because they do things to reduce the weight of the car. So like the door panels aren't as fancy and the seats aren't as cushy. There's less padding, right? So it's like you're actually spending more money to get less in some people's minds. Did you just launch part of your pen at me? God. You got to buy nicer pens. So, but I think that's really important if I looked at those two cars side by side and I saw the prices, knowing what I know now, I want the GT3.
Yeah.
But that's more in line with my lifestyle and what I actually want. But most people would never give themselves that opportunity in the first place. Most people have a number in their mind of, I can't spend more than X on a car.
Right.
Or I can't have a monthly payment more than this.
Right.
But what if you took that out first and started with, here's what I want in a car.
Yeah.
And then you can go out and price it, and then you can make the decision about whether it's worth it. But we never even give ourselves the opportunity to say what we actually want.
Right.
That part never comes into the conversation.
We build it around money and then fit it around that number.
And it's a great excuse to never have to decide what it is that we actually want. Yeah. That's also your sales lesson of the day.
Yeah.
Right? A good salesperson will get someone to decide whether or not they want something before they say the price.
Yeah.
Does that sound good to you? Yeah. Is that something you want? Yeah. All right, now let's talk about the pricing.
Yeah.
And then the person may say, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so expensive. I want to share the story from the one Zoom call that I took on this trip, but I don't want to give away too many details. But there was an opportunity to work with someone famous on a thing, and I have to pay for this opportunity.
Yeah.
So I saw the ad, I opted in, went through the funnel, read through the emails, hopped on the Zoom call, and I'm thinking, I want this.
Right.
I want this. Like, I want to do this. This would be a great opportunity for us.
You went into it with, you want to do it, not wonder how much this is going to be.
Yeah. And so the sales guy wasn't great, so he didn't get me that decision, but he jumped into the price, and then he said the price, and it was like, holy crap, it's a no-brainer. Like, I was ready to spend 5 times this on this opportunity. But if we started with the price and I looked at, and let's say it was $25,000, right? I'm making this number up, but let's say it was $25,000. A lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, I don't have $25,000, or that's a lot of money, or think of all the other things I could do with that money instead of invested in myself or in my business. But they give themselves the out by looking at the price before they look into the criteria of like, what could I get out of this? What could the opportunity be from this?
Yeah.
And this is, when we started this show, I said, like, I'm going to be the opposite of Dave Ramsey, right? He's very frugal. You know, he gives a lot of financial advice about how bad debt is, and you know, you got to pay for everything with cash, and save up your emergency, you know, your $1,000 emergency fund first, which is a joke. Like, if I ever had an emergency that only cost $1,000, I'd be a really happy person. But anyway, he talks about how bad debt is, and it's like, except the most successful entrepreneurs that I know really use debt to their advantage. Not bad debt. Don't rack up the credit cards and don't go out and take these merchant service loans and stuff like that. But really effectively using borrowed money to grow your business is such a different mindset shift of really what, like, the most famous financial, I don't know if I would call him a financial advisor, but the most famous financial talking head in the world sends this message of debt is bad and do all that you can, like really make massive sacrifices to get out of debt as quickly as possible, versus really successful entrepreneurs that I know use debt to help grow and scale their businesses so that they can go and find these opportunities. Because here's what successful entrepreneurs know. They know that they can always go and make more money.
Correct.
There's more out there, right?
Money is in abundance.
Yeah. And so I can spend $15,000 on a marketing campaign and not get a single dollar back on that, and learn it's not going to break me. Right. But I'm going to learn my lesson, and I'm going to get better for the next time that we go and do another marketing campaign. But I know, and it stings a little bit.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, the good news is I know I can make that money back. Right. I'm going to find some way to turn this opportunity around. And I think that's where
some people stop right there.
Most people
failed
do.
Or there's a fear in there or whatever, but that's their stopping point.
Well,
that's
most people aren't even going to take the risk in the first place.
Right.
Most people aren't going to spend that $15,000 in the first place. They aren't even going to take that risk, which is a whole different story.
You have to take the risk in order sometimes to make the money. I mean, you have to take
100%.
smart risks, but
yeah, that's what most people aren't willing to do. That's the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur.
Right.
I put a lot at risk. No offense to anybody that has a job out there, but you're in a pretty good position, because if you get fired, whether it's for a reason or your boss is just in a bad mood, like, you can go and get unemployment pretty easily, and it's never going to fully cover your salary, and I get that. But at least there's something to fall back on there. And the job market is where it is today. That should be pretty easy to go out and find another job pretty quickly. But for me as an entrepreneur, I have long-term commitments to this business that I've got loans to pay back. I've got leases on equipment and buildings, and I've got investments in this thing that I have a lot at risk here.
Yeah.
And I do take money out of my personal savings account and put it into the business without a guarantee that I'm going to get a return on it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between being an entrepreneur and being an employee. You're never going to have to take that risk. You're never going to have to go out of pocket to support your job.
Right.
Now, if you wanted to, and if you wanted to buy in, great, go for it, because the upside is going to be a heck of a lot higher. But I am willing to face a whole lot of downside in order for the unlimited upside.
Right.
Most employees want to share in the upside, but not the downside of it, right?
Oh, you got to listen to our show from last week. We talked about.
Well, great. I hope you talked about how I'm willing to share in the upside, but you're never going to see as much of it as I do, because you're not the one taking the risk.
Right. No, we talked about, taking that risk with, though, the entrepreneur, right? Because we trust in you to make sure you succeed. Whereas if you're working for like a corporation or something like that, it's kind of there's more of a security in that. So yeah, you gotta watch last
There's
week's
more
show.
security in working for a corporation.
There is.
I need to do a rebuttal show after I go and listen to
No,
this
you
thing.
don't. There is, because you don't. You're just you're not. I don't know how we explained it. You're not working for, like, everything rides on you, right? As an entrepreneur, it's your business. Everything is riding on you. When you're working for a corporation, your boss has a boss, has a boss. Like, it's up the ladder, right? So a lot of things in that have to go wrong before it actually gets to you. Whereas working for a small business or an entrepreneur where that's...
Dell this year laid off 26,000 people.
Yeah, but how many people do they have?
Hang on. Have you ever heard of Dell?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever heard of Intel?
Yes.
They laid off 15,000 people this year. Tesla, you heard of them?
Yes.
14,500 people they have laid off. Cisco, you heard of them?
Yeah.
10,000 people they've laid off this year. SAP, 8,000. Toshiba, 4,000. A couple other companies. PayPal laid off 2,600 people this year.
Out of how many?
I've never laid off that many people in my entire life.
You're scaling it on a whole different level. 15,000 out of how many?
I don't know, but that's 15,000 people that don't have a job right now because they work
but when
for a secure
if you only have like
corporation.
11 and 4 are let go, it's the same.
Sure, it's the same ratio, but the raw numbers are like, there's so much more scale there. Like I think it's so much riskier working for a big corporation, especially as we head into a period of great economic turmoil and economic uncertainty, that these companies that have been stockpiling cash for the last several years and can now get a pretty good return on that cash, like risk-free by putting it in, some pretty low-risk investments. I think as we head into this period of economic uncertainty and who knows what the election is going to do and all of this other stuff, that corporations are going to start looking a lot more closely at what they're actually spending money on.
Right.
And for a lot of corporations, payroll is their number one expense, and they're going to start cutting it. Google did this a couple of years ago, maybe even last year. They went out and hired like crazy during the pandemic because they're Google, because they can. And these people went out, fresh out of college, were making $250,000 a year. And they didn't actually have a job to do. They were just being acquired for the talent just in case someday Google may actually be able to deploy them and make them useful in the business. And then what happened? They got let go.
Yeah.
Like thousands of them got let go.
Right. And look how many people opt to do that and work for it because it seems like that safer option, and that's what they'd rather do than take that risk.
But that's the thing, is it's not safer.
Right.
But it's not safer.
But people don't know that. People don't understand that.
Right.
That was the thing of like, so you have your being an employee, and then we called it, so you know how there's like a co-pilot?
I'm familiar with the concept, yes.
Yes, that's why we did. Yeah. So we called them co-entrepreneurs, or the people that work for entrepreneurs, because they see a different type of way that businesses are run.
Can I give you maybe a different phrase for that?
Sure, because we were trying to think of.
Yeah. The word is intrapreneur.
Oh, nice.
So like within the company. So entrepreneur is the owner of the business. Intrapreneur is someone who works for someone else but still has entrepreneurial tendencies.
Okay, so we called it. So yeah, listen to last week's show.
I should be on this show more often. I'm going to do one without you. I'm going to send you on vacation somewhere. And I'm going to
please.
I'm going to do a show all by myself.
My vision board has Bali on there.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm going to send you to Buffalo.
Don't worry.
All right. So how about let's talk about some other money stories, because I think this is a good time to change gears probably. Here's one that I see a lot. I mean, it's common on social media. It's common nationally. I think it's especially common in Erie, Pennsylvania, where you see someone that's successful and you immediately tell yourself stories about how they got there.
Yes.
Right? Someone gets something nice or new or quote unquote expensive, and you immediately come up with stories of they inherited it, or they did it illegally, or they took advantage of people. Like this was, I don't really care what family you grew up in. We all have stories like this of some variety. And part of the reason is most middle-class people, middle and lower class, are not raised with that wealthy influence in their lives.
Yeah.
Most people don't have that rich uncle who has created success for himself and set an example. So most people just not having exposure to rich people, to wealthy people, to successful people, have to come up with these stories to justify the difference in the two different lifestyles, right? This is a very, very common thing, but I think it's important. This is going on right now, and I don't want to talk too much about it because one, it's really locally focused, but two, I probably just don't know enough about it to speak intelligently. But there's a pretty significant lawsuit that just got filed in Erie because of a really wealthy guy in town who was basically bled dry. I mean, we're talking.
I read that.
It's hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And the part of the story is that when he was, I don't know, 60 or 70, he adopted a 40-year-old woman, and she's the defendant in this lawsuit. And when I look at the comments on social media about this news story, it's really interesting to me because everybody so many people love seeing this guy suffer.
Yeah.
Like they love talking about what a weirdo he was, right? Because he's taken these risks and he's done these things, and I've met him, and he's weird, and why doesn't some person worth hundreds of millions of dollars adopt me, and who does stuff like that? And there's all these judgments about this guy, versus what they're not looking at is the number of businesses and jobs that he's launched. Some have been successful, some have not. Right. And they love celebrating the ones that didn't go so well.
Right.
They love seeing people fail on this stuff rather than the ones that have been successful.
Well, you don't ever want to see someone be successful because then it makes you look at yourself. Right. That's what, like, we judge others, but it's usually a reflection of how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah. So that's a good perspective shift too, is where were we driving? Oh, San Francisco. So we had a 24-hour layover in San Francisco. So we did one of these hop on, hop off, like double-decker tour bus things. I've never done anything like this, but we were like, we got 24 hours. This is a great way to see the whole town. So we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge. Jackie thought we were reenacting the opening scene from Full House. Because remember,
Oh, yes.
remember in the opening credits where they drive on the Golden Gate Bridge and they're in a convertible?
Yes,
I did not
yes.
remember this, but we were on the top of a double-decker bus and Jackie was like, this is our Full House moment. But we drove by crossing back from whatever, the other side back into San Francisco. And the guide on the bus was talking about these houses up on the hill that rent for $20,000 a month. So you can rent one of these homes, pretty nice looking homes, on, you know, the mountaintop or mountainside in San Francisco for $20,000 a month. And there are people on the bus that hear that. And part of the reason that he tells that story is you know, shock and awe.
Yeah.
Like most people aren't
Who's
used
going
to
do that? Yeah.
Like if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, it's like
Right.
mind blowing to a lot of people. So to rent, not even own, for $20,000 a month, like, and it was really interesting to hear the reactions on this bus from people.
Yeah.
Oh my God, who would do that? That's crazy. That's such a crazy amount of money. That's so nuts. Like, that's dumb. That's foolish. That's stupid. They've got all these judgments to pass on it. My immediate thought is, who does, like, what type of person does that?
What do they do
What
to
must be
have
true?
that? Yeah.
What must be true in someone's life for them to say, yes, renting that home for $20,000 a month makes sense for me?
Yeah.
And I may agree or disagree with why they do it or what's going on in their lives, but I really come at it with an eye of curiosity instead of judgment. But I think it's very easy to jump into judgment. And this is true for anything, but especially around money. It's very easy for us to jump in and pass judgment and make up stories that we don't know whether they're true or not.
Yeah.
We don't know why someone would want to rent one of those houses for
Right.
$20,000 a month. Maybe they just sold their $30 million mansion and they're looking for a new place to live.
If
right?
I had millions of dollars, I'm probably going to do some weird stuff. I'm probably going to go.
Well, other people are going to view
like-
it as weird, but you do stuff that's weird now that
Yeah.
people who live in third world countries think is completely ridiculous.
Right. Like I would.
You go out and
probably-
you drink energy drinks every single day.
Yeah.
Actually, remind me after the show because I don't want to
You tell
spoil
me
it today.
something
But I have
bad
a
about
fun,
that.
I have a
Okay.
fun Celsius energy story for you that I'm going to
Okay.
share after this show. All right, we're getting off topic.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying we base what. There I am talking with my hands again. If I had an abundant amount of money, and
You do.
Well, yes.
That's the thing.
Yes, I do.
How big is your house?
I don't know.
How many bedrooms do you have?
5.
5 bedrooms. 5 bedrooms.
Yes.
There are people that live in one-room buildings with dirt floors.
Yes.
Looking at your 5-bedroom house, and let's not blow this out. It's not a massive house,
No.
right? Like you built basement bedrooms and stuff. You got a lot of kids to fit in there. Like it's not you're not living in a mansion.
No.
But to someone living in a one-room shack with
It
dirt
would
floors,
be.
they're looking at you going, "You rich jerk.
Yeah.
You are crazy. Why would you ever need that many bedrooms?"
Yeah.
So they've got stories about you, and it's the same as the stories that you're telling about the people that are worth millions. Like you've got an abundance of money if you want to compare it to something else like that,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the story that we tell. This was like my 40th birthday when we went to New York City, and we stayed one night at the Plaza Hotel. So we were gone for a couple days. We stayed at the Marriott a couple doors down, and then we decided to do one night at the Plaza. So we booked the room. It was the what's his name from Home Alone? Kevin
McAllister.
Kevin McAllister.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the Kevin McAllister room
Yeah.
at the Plaza Hotel, right? And we had a butler.
Yep.
I don't even know what you do with
Did
a
you
butler.
tip him gum? Or isn't that what he gave him, gum or something in the movie?
I don't know. I don't even know what you do with a butler. Like bring us coffee, okay? And that like I don't know what else you do with a butler.
Yeah.
And this was I think it was a couple $1,000s for this one night at this hotel. But it was really cool. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Really, really fun. And the butler did give us a tour. There's a suite or a room at the Plaza. That's the what's the children's book with the little girl? Oh man, this is gonna drive me crazy. Joel, Google it. The little girl at the Plaza Hotel. Anyway, children's book. She lives at the Plaza, and they've got a suite that's like themed after. It's all pink and has her characters in it. And
Who
stuff
are you
like that.
talking?
Eleanor. There you go.
Yes.
All right. So it was funny with Penny there. All the staff in the hotel refers to the little girls as Eleanor. As
Eloise.
Eloise. There we go. That's even better. So yeah, they say hello, Eloise. And my name's
Aw.
Penny. I was like, yeah, but remember the story. But anyway, so we spent a couple $1,000s on this hotel room, and it was huge. It was probably 1,500 square feet, and multiple bedrooms and multiple bathrooms and a butler, and there was a Christmas tree because it was around Christmas time. There are people who hear me tell that story of spending, I'm going to say it was $3,000 for one night, right? And you know how it is at a hotel. You don't even get a full 24 hours. Your check-in is at 3 p.m. Your check-out is 11 a.m. if you're lucky, right? So we had 24 hours in this hotel, just a place to sleep. It was $3,000. You know, that same night, in that same hotel, on a higher floor, in a bigger room, it was available for $75,000 for a single night in this hotel.
The penthouse.
Probably. Yeah. But and it might even be like multiple floors. But the point is, we've all got these stories. Yeah. And for some people, they're going to look at a $3,000 hotel room and go, "You're slumming it. Why would I do that?" Yeah. That's the same way that I'm going to look at a $39 a night hotel room. I don't even know if those exist, but
I'm sure somewhere.
5 years ago, there used to be $39 a night hotel rooms. Now they're all $200. But that's the point is we've got these stories of where does it really come from? Like, where do we decide that there's a number beyond which
we can't? It's
completely unreasonable or completely foolish to spend that money. So I think it's really important. I think that's the point of today's show, is start thinking about those stories that you tell yourselves
where they came
about
from.
Money. Yeah. I remember the first time I had a car payment that had a comma in it, right? So the first time my car payment was over $1,000. Prior to that, like, my threshold was like 200, maybe 250, right? Like that was the limit for my car payment. And I don't know where that number came from, but that's what I was comfortable with. That's what I could justify, and anything beyond that was stupid or foolish, or I wasn't worth it.
Right.
So I've started to look at these things, like the house on the mountain in San Francisco that rents for $20,000 a month, or the hotel room at the Plaza around Christmas time that's $75,000 a night. And I ask myself,
to stop saying it's so weird and crazy that.
Yeah, what must that person's truth be for that to make sense?
Yeah.
Like that is the perspective shift that I've
what makes it worth it.
Yeah. So at least I'm examining what my story is around that, and I can learn a little bit about what somebody else's story is, or what their truth may be. And here's the other thing that I've started doing. And this was, I mean, a lot of this has to do with travel and the way that we travel too, especially, but you see people do things when you travel, and there's a difference between showing up to the airport. You land at the airport and you grab your bags and you walk to, like, most airports have a separate pickup section for Uber and Lyft and the rideshare stuff, right? It's usually not the regular pickup location. So you got to, like, because there's so many of them, especially when we were in California, like, there's so many Ubers that you have to walk to a separate pickup spot at the airport. So it's a longer walk. So you can get your baggage, you can request the ride, and the way that Uber works is, you've got your different levels, but if you pick like the base level Uber, you don't know what's going to pick you up.
Yeah.
Like it could be somebody's stinky Chevy Aveo. No offense to the Chevy Aveo listeners out there.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a tiny little Chevy, right? What's that? There's a Honda Accord with a dent in the side of it pulling right up. Yeah, like that person ran into a serious guardrail. Yeah, that thing could pick you up at the airport, right? Yes. You could get picked up in the Honda Accord with the dent on the side and stains in the seats. But there's also people that land at that airport where the driver in the suit is holding up the sign with their name on it. Mm-hmm. And I started, initially I would see that and go, who needs that? And then I started thinking, well, why does that person have that and not me? Like, what's different about them that I don't have this in my life?
Right.
And there are some instances where I look at it and say, examine it and say, it doesn't really matter. And then there's other instances where I say, well, maybe they don't want to get into, maybe they would rather get into a nice car. The best one I've ever been picked up in was, I'll never forget this. This was in Raleigh. It was a Lincoln, like a Navigator. And it was the nicest backseat I've ever been in. Like, I've been in Escalades and Suburbans and Tahoes and been picked up in the limos and all that stuff. But this Lincoln was the nicest one. Great car to be driven in. So I started thinking, what must be true in their lives? And that guy just walked into that street sign, didn't he?
Then he yelled at the sign.
That was awkward. All right. I love having a Street View studio here.
He got mad at this.
I would, well, I would too. Thing came out of nowhere. So I started thinking about what must be true in these people's lives and why not me. And then I started giving it a try, and I realized, so if I travel, especially if I travel with my kids and we have a whole bunch of luggage, having that driver there waiting for you, they can actually help carry your luggage out to the car. And when they help carry the luggage out to the car, a lot of the legit professional drivers, they also have their own separate section at the airport to pick you up, but it's actually a lot closer, so you don't have to walk as far. And actually, also, if you fly first class, you get the priority baggage. So your bags, you get off the plane first because you're sitting in the front.
Right.
Your bags get out to the baggage claim first because they have the orange sticker on there. And so you're like the first one out of the airport, beating all the traffic, not having to deal with all the people standing around the baggage claim. Like, you're in and out of there, and you get to your hotel faster.
Right.
That's like the logical, rational side of things, that I've saved this time and I've gotten out of the airport faster, and I haven't had to lift as many heavy bags as many times.
I made it a more enjoyable
But then there's the
experience.
emotional side of it, which is what I really like about it, is like, I like sitting in the back seat of a nice SUV where I've got my own separate heating and air conditioning controls, and I love the vent on the ceiling in the Tahoe. And there's Suburban. That's one of my favorites. I could blow the cold air right on you. And there's usually a bottle of cold water there, and maybe some gum and mints and things like that. And it's really nice after being on a plane, which is not the most comfortable thing, to have that experience. So now when I travel, that's generally part of our experience, that we've got the driver there waiting for us. There's exceptions to that.
Yep.
In Tahiti, we rented a Peugeot, which is the worst car I've ever driven.
What is that?
It's a Volkswagen brand. It's European. We actually rented one in Ireland in 2019. It wasn't bad. This car was horrible. But what happened was we had to leave the Brando early because there was wind coming in, and the little plane, they were worried that we may have to stay for another couple days.
Oh, well.
And we're like, well, maybe, but no, we got to get back to the kids. So we ended up coming back to Tahiti about a day early. So we had an extra 24 hours in Tahiti. So it's an island, and it was 150 kilometers maybe, although there was one road around the entire island. So I'm like, we're gonna do one lap of Tahiti. So let's rent the car and do the lap. And it was so much fun. It was cool because it's ocean views the entire way.
Nice.
And then, but it's
So how long does one lap take?
It took us a few hours.
Oh, really? Okay.
But we stopped at waterfalls. There were grottos, like really cool. These cute little shops and roadside attractions, and it was pretty beautiful. Tahiti wasn't as nice as Bora Bora. It was different. It was cool, but it was really fun to drive that. But I'm never gonna buy a Peugeot. It was a 206 or a 208. It was like the worst car. And so here's a funny money story. You had the option of an automatic and a manual car, right?
Okay.
And I like driving a stick shift.
Yeah.
Right. I actually, other than my race car, I don't have one right now. Jackie's car is a stick shift. But so it's like they're usually more fun to drive. And it was also $20 cheaper for the day to rent the manual.
Because nobody drives them.
Nobody knows how to do it. Yeah. I also learned that it's kind of unpleasant to drive in island traffic. So I got it, and the guy's like, "You really want the manual?" I'm like, "Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun." And the car was so slow that it was like every time any time we went up any type of incline, I had to like downshift so I could get enough speed going. But it was a lot of fun. So anyway, I think today's show is, let's start thinking about our stories around money.
Yeah.
Let's start thinking about where these stories come from.
What
and
you're telling yourself.
let's start to acknowledge whether there's guilt or shame or worthiness or resentment or jealousy. And let's dig into what the truth really is. So when you see someone that's living a different life than yours, I don't say better, I don't say worse, but different. And when it comes to money, let's really start to understand that and really start to examine that. And you'll see that the people who tend to be more successful, whether that's financially successful or they have the impact that they want to have or they've got the great family life or however you want to define it, you'll find that those people who have success are thinking about money differently.
Yeah.
They're seeing the abundance. They're seeing the opportunity to use money as a tool. In fact, one of my favorites is, have you ever heard money's the root of all evil?
Yes.
And do you know where that comes from?
I do not.
It comes from the Bible, except it's an incomplete quote. The quote from the Bible is, the love of money is the root of all evil. Meaning, if your sole focus is money and nothing else, it's the root of all evil. Which, I agree with.
Yes.
But what the common saying is, money is the root of all evil. And that gives us.
That makes you think that money puts
That's
the
it.
bad
But it turns out that most good in life comes as a result of having money, of being able to do things.
It's just understanding it.
Yeah, and create jobs and have opportunities and do the things that we want to do. Like that's where the money comes from. So all right,
Makes
go
sense.
out.
Change
this
your
week.
focus on
Change your focus. Understand the stories. Oh man, find some abundance. This is
Yes.
going to be awesome. All right, great show,
Manifest.
everybody. I believe in you.